With us now, Chris Cillizza, NewsNation contributor, senior advisor to the DGA Group. So I feel like we're setting up, and what Newsom is setting up for is, hey, I want to make America California, but I'm going to be a little less socially woke.
Well, that won't work. I mean, I feel like we kind of learned that lesson in the past. It was funny. I was laughing listening to Newsom's answer to Ezra Leland. It reminded me of getting called on in math class when I didn't know the answer. And I'd say, I have 40% of 60% of 15 divided by 8. Here's a bunch of numbers. You know, it's hard to follow.
How'd that work out for you, Cillizza?
Look what I do now for a living, my friend. I don't work in the math. I'm not a mathematician. I think that, broadly speaking, I actually think, I mean, I know it's really transparent. It's obvious what he's doing with this podcast where he talks to people like Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. But I'll be honest, I actually think that's kind of smart, because I think the problem for Gavin Newsom is if he is associated as a California liberal, he has no chance, right? We've seen that movie. That didn't work for Kamala Harris, and it won't work for Gavin Newsom. So I actually think that piece of it is smart. I do think that kind of trying to relitigate the idea that California is not a very liberal state on policy, particularly tax policy, but policy more generally, gosh, that's a really uphill fight.
Yeah, and you think about California Policy Institute, California crime rate, shoplifting up 40%, robberies up 11%, auto theft up 8%, on and on and on. And we saw this with Joe Biden, right? Telling Americans, no, you're wrong. The economy is actually doing great. Gavin Newsom, no, you're wrong. California doesn't have high taxes. And you can almost see him say, like, no, you're wrong. California is totally safe, because if you divide 1.7 by 39.9 and you only look at crimes committed, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. on Tuesdays that are odd-numbered days, things are great here.
Yeah.
Is telling the American people they're wrong ever a winning strategy?
No, unless you can. Probably the answer, honestly, I'm thinking the answer is probably no, even if you're right. He's not right in this situation, but telling the American people they're wrong, even when you're right and they actually are wrong, is probably not a winning political strategy, honestly, Leland. But I just think, look, I think Gavin Newsom is doing interesting things, but it's just going to be really hard. He's going to have been the governor of California for 8 years. Right, when he eventually runs, when he might run for president. He's going to run for president, right? So I just think that's going to be hard. I just think, because I think Democrats are gun shy because they've gone through this. They've seen what it looked like. They saw Comrade Kamala work. Gavin Newsom was the mayor of San Francisco before he was the governor of California. Just a long record. I get what he's trying to do. Like, from a purely political sort of strategic perspective, I think it's the right thing. I just am not sure it's going to work, because, to your point, just a lot of data there that would suggest that what he's trying to do. Well, there's a lot of data.
There's a lot of data, and there's a lot of tape, right? There's the data, there's the tape, there's how people feel, there's the amount of people who have left California, on and on. If we flip this on its head and look at that Gavin Newsom sort of engaging in this different way, is there something else that he's trying to do here? Is it that he's trying to clear the field? We think about possible Democratic candidates: Kamala Harris, Whitmer, Buttigieg, Tim Walz, good luck with that, Josh Shapiro, Gavin Newsom, Wes Moore, Andy Beshear, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He's sort of trying to prove he has star power, maybe not apprentice star power like primetime network television star power, but like, I can do it.
Look, I think he rightly recognizes there's a gigantic leadership vacuum within the Democratic Party at the moment, right? There is, if we asked 100 people on the street who's the leader of the Democratic Party, my guess is Kamala Harris would get the most votes, because that's the name people know, right? But I don't think anybody looks at her and thinks that's the future leader of the Democratic Party.
I hate to correct you on any issue of politics because you're smarter than me, but I think there was a poll about that, and don't know was the #1 answer.
Right. And so, look, Gavin Newsom is not stupid. Whatever you think of Gavin Newsom is stupid. He understands there's a vacuum, and there is what the party clearly needs to do is not be. I talked to a Democratic pollster named John Anzalone yesterday, who was Biden and Hillary's pollster in 2020 and 2016, and he said he sits in these focus groups post-election, and the two words that come up more often than anything else when you ask people about Democrats are weak and woke. Well, you can't win with that. And Gavin Newsom, I think, is addressing that. The issue is like and this happens all the time in politics, the message I actually think is right. Messenger is more problematic because he's the governor of California. Yeah, I mean, if Andy Beshear was doing this, that's more interesting.
Yeah, I'll go one step further, though, and go back to the segment from before, which is the tribalism makes it so it may not matter. The fact we're sort of in a post-fact world, post-shame world, and everything else.
You can kind of create your own reality. There's no question. Friend, take care.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom lives in an interesting one. Whatever he's taking, I wish he would share.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.